Hey, on today's podcast, Pastor Jonathan Kaiser is my co-host. Pastor Jonathan has been accurately described by my sons as youth pastor extraordinaire. So together, Pastor Jonathan and I, we get to interview police officer Matthew Housam. Matt and his precious family are members of NorthStone Baptist Church here in Pensacola, but Matt is also a member of the Escambia County Sheriff's Department. Officer Housam has served our country in the military, as well as worked with the local fire department, so he is a man of many experiences. And some of you may remember the NAS Pensacola shooting. Officer Housam was one of the men that took out the shooter. And in this podcast, Brother Housam shares details of that experience, as well as several other stories of near-death experiences. He also explains how his Christian faith has impacted the way he does his job. So I strongly encourage you to stay with us to the very end of this podcast, because I am certain that this discussion will offer lots of strength for your life.
Welcome to the Strength for Life podcast with Pastor James C. Johnson, a ministry of NorthStone Baptist Church in Pensacola, Florida.
What they bring into it would basically level the whole entire country.
Okay.
There'd be nothing left. So I was telling General, I was like, this is where we're going to put the medevacs in. And it was in the blast zone. He's like, well, that's going to be in the blast zone. I'm like, sir, if this thing blows up, there'll be nothing but glass left here, and the helicopters can land right on there. He's like, oh, that makes sense. I guess the helicopters will come in after the explosion. So,
yeah, that would make sense, not during.
yeah, he's like, oh, okay, that's logical. So then he like gave me a challenge coin for, and he's like, that's really good. And then they have these trackers on them, which they call interrogators. Basically, is when the batteries go low, they start beeping like a time bomb.
Okay.
To help track its whole bunch of secret stuff. But when the batteries go low, they start beeping like a bomb. So I've never seen so many third country nationals that work on the ship like jump overboard, jump off the dock, people getting in cars, fleeing to get as fast away from this ship. I was like, we don't have enough time in the world to make it. This thing blows up, like there's nothing left. Everybody in here is gone.
Yeah, right.
So my staff sergeant, he hopped in the little cargo van and took off, just disappeared. I was like, bye. And I'm like, it's going to catch you. We're going to vaporize first. You're going to get it. It's just going to be a few seconds later.
You'll see it in the mirror coming, read the mirror coming at you.
Yeah, just a big glow. And they do it at the weird hours, like, 2 in the morning. Like, no one expects this giant, ultra protected ship to come in. Like, I wonder what that's doing here at 2 in the morning. So it was unique.
Officer Matt Housam, thank you so much for joining us on today's Strength for Life podcast. I wonder, how long have you been with the Escambia County Sheriff's Department?
Almost 8 years now. October will be 8 years.
Okay. And were you with the department previous, or?
Prior to the sheriff's office, I worked for the county fire department here.
Okay, cool.
I couldn't make up my mind on what I wanted to be when I grow up. So went to the fire department, then transitioned over to the sheriff's office right after that.
Cool. You're in military too. You served our country previous even to that. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Tell us about your military experience.
So my older brother got into the reserves. We're 18 months apart. So I was like, oh, when he left to go to boot camp, the recruiter's out front. I was 17 at the time. And the recruiter's like, hey, I can help you out. I got some good stuff for you. So I went there and took the practice test. And he said, you scored really, really high. I want you to go take the actual ASVAB and we'll see where we can get you. So I was like, oh, I'll just do it just for fun. No big deal. I took it and I scored really high. They offered a counterintelligence interrogator position. Basically learn to speak Arabic and disappear for 6 months, then come back and learn all the ins and outs. But at 17 years old, they offered a job that had a higher payout bonus. So at 17, the interrogator wasn't that high bonus. Like, oh, learn some cool stuff. Like, go work for the State Department when you're done, a bunch of secrets. And then like, but if you do this job, it's cool. You'll go out and do a lot of cool stuff, but we'll also give you $20,000 sign-on bonus. Like, I'll do that deal. At 17 years old, I'm like, I'm going to do that deal instead.
Sure, yeah.
So I had my parents sign the consent form, and after high school, I turned 18 in January, and then July I was in boot camp.
Okay.
Right after school. That summer went by really quick. Then went from like the schools and up to Virginia for a little bit, and then back home, and then within a couple of years deployed to the Middle East right after that.
Okay.
And then I got back home, kind of, I won't say disgruntled, but I was like, I'm ready to be done. I didn't want to sign again. My command or XO was like, hey, we want to promote you. We think you'd be great. I was like, no, I'm done. I got out at 22, I think, 21. I was like, I'm done.
4 or 5 years of military service?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
I was done. I was ready to get out. Got out, and went and got hired by a fire department full time. Because I worked for a fire department in Navarre here in the county for part time before leaving.
Okay.
And then came back, and I was like, I'm done. I'm going to do this full time now. So I decided to get out
You said when
altogether.
you were a kid, you had trouble figuring out fire department or law enforcement or what you wanted to do.
Yes.
So how did you know it was God's will for your life to be in law enforcement?
It kind of like had a piece about it. As a kid, I had a passion for medicine.
Okay.
We have some family of ours is all physicians and that nature, and I wanted to be a Navy pilot. Like, I want to do that. And then kind of got involved as a volunteer fire department in high school. I was like, this would be kind of cool. I like this. It's a kind of adrenaline rush. I was like, no, I need to go to the military first. Kind of hit that check in the box. I did that. Came back, got my EMT license and the fire standards for all the schools. Worked with EMS for a short bit, and then worked fire department full time. And kind of maxed out all the schools for that. Did all the special rescue schools for the fire department. I just kind of lost interest in it real quick. Did it for, I think, 3-4 years. Then I did some ride-alongs with the sheriff's office, and I was like, man, this is my niche right here.
Okay.
What I'm really excited about, and talking with my wife, I was married at the time. Worked fire department full time, then went through the police academy. And talked with my wife Cass. I was like, I think this is what I want to do. We kind of prayed about it, and kind of piece like, this is the workout. Everything fell right in line. There was no hiccups trying to get into the school. I was nervous going back to school. Like, I don't want to go back to school. We got to do some tests to get in, see if I'm eligible. Passed the physical, and I was able to do all that just fine. And the first sheriff's office first place I applied for, and it just like clockwork. Everything fell right in line. There was no hiccups, and it's kind of, when I left, I was struggling. Like, do I really want to give the fire department? I'm kind of at the top of my game in the fire service. But my kind of piece about it, my wife's like, if it's meant to be, if it's where you're going to be, then it's just going to work out fine. No issues, no stress. And it fell basically right into my hands.
You were 8 years later.
So I was, been happy with my choice to go over there, and kind of a piece about making it over there.
Cool.
So what's your rank right now?
Right now it's a deputy first class. They break down like deputy trainee, deputy sheriff, deputy first class, senior deputy, master deputy. I might have the senior master flipped around. That's way down further in the career. You hit the milestones at 7 years, 12 years, 15 years, unless you promote and go other first. But right now, deputy first class and assigned to canine patrol.
Yeah.
Right. So was that a whole different set of training to become canine, or like
It is.
how long into your law enforcement did you decide to do canine, or did you decide, or did they?
Canine is kind of a proactive, aggressive type of policing. You kind of be a real self-starter because you got to go through a whole new school again. To do a canine program, you have to have a minimum of 3 years on the job before you're even eligible. You have to do interviews and stuff like that. The first time I got interested in canine, pretty much shortly after we being on patrol. I was younger, a little better shape, so real go-getter. I was on nights. So there's a lot of stuff to get into working night shift. And that's what they look for in canine, is a self-starter deputy who really wants to, try to eliminate the violent crimes, narcotics, guns, stuff that's just free floating on the streets. So about 2 years in, I was like, I want to go for canine. It's my goal. They had a canine spot open up, and I was 2 years and like 10 days short of my 3-year mark when they did interviews. They called me like, hey, we appreciate you putting in, but you're like 10 days too short for being eligible.
Okay.
And they held fast in that timeline. I got kind of discouraged. I was like, oh, well, it's just, it's not meant to be. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I stayed on a really good shift. I had a lot of good friends that we all worked a day shift together. I got moved off to nights. When we were trying to have our first child, I told my captain, like, hey, I want to go to days. It'll be better for family life. And they're like, yeah, we 100% get it. So they put me on day shift. I had a good group of guys I worked with who were real aggressive. Didn't just kind of sit back and take calls as they come. Fast forward through the day shift a little bit. We had interviews again. I hit my 3-year mark in October of 2019, and I was eligible.
Cool.
While I was on days, I had a lot of significant things happen on days. A lot of, high profile type cases. So then hit my 3-year mark in December, first week of December. We did interviews for canine. I was eligible. I went out there and met with the canine supervisor, and the canine trainer and some of the other handlers. I had a couple handlers on my shift that I got to know really, really well. And I was kind of the go-to guy for like canine tracks. Like, hey, Housam, come over here. We want you to go with us.
Yeah.
We're going to, track this suspect for whatever reason, or giving them a lot of narcotics checks for the dogs, give them a lot of work. So I interviewed, like, hey, yeah, we'll reach out to you. A lot of people at the time were interested in canines. Like, man, I ain't got a shot at this. I'm a rookie deputy compared to some of these guys that are testing for it. I think some of the guys had like 7-8 years on the job. And then NAS Pensacola happened, and I got involved in that incident. I didn't get put on admin leave right after any kind of significant incident like that. And I called the canine supervisor, like, hey, look, he may not have been at work yet. I was like, hey, don't count me out of the hiring process yet for canine. I'm like, I'm going to be on admin leave. I still want the work a dog. Please don't count me out. He's like, no, don't worry about it. Being on admin leave has nothing to do with it. We'll still consider your application. And then he called me because it's a mandatory 2 weeks out. So I'm sitting around the house doing nothing for 2 weeks. And you had to do interviews with attorneys and with the FBI.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm like, man, this is miserable. I'm sitting around the house not doing nothing. And then he called me back when I was at the end of my leave. He's like, hey, when you come back in the next couple of days, you got a dog. I got a spot for you.
Nice.
Yeah, tell us about the canines. So you've had 2 German Shepherds.
Correct.
And you retired one.
Correct.
Right? So what are the names and kind of what are the distinctions between the two?
So my previous dog, the dog I got in December of 2019, was a full-blooded German Shepherd, a tricolor, the true, like, when you look at a manly man-looking German Shepherd, that's what Axel was.
Okay.
He still is.
You got pictures?
I do.
Maybe Chris could have them pop up on the screen for us or something. You don't need to show us right now. But
okay. Yeah, I do have a picture. I'll get with him.
Yeah, cool.
I got Axel, and I worked with the handler who had him before, ended up resigning from the office. And I loved Axel. I did a lot of stuff with him. When he had him, he was assigned to my shifts. I was real comfortable with Axel.
He's like a partner.
He is.
Right? Yeah. When you have a canine, it's like, that's my partner.
So when they said, hey, you're going to get Axel from this previous handler, I was thrilled. Like, I loved Axel. I'd always buy him treats when his handler
Nice.
his handler would like, hey, you gotta be strict, like food regimen, train this, that, and the other, kind of by the book. But I was the patrol guy, like, come here, Axel, I'd give him treats or buy him toys or whatever. I loved Axel to death. He was the true tricolor, black and white and tan, just a big male.
Yeah.
He's from Slovakia originally.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And then when he was bred in Slovakia, they train him usually for about a year in their home country and then bring him over to the States. We purchased him when they get to the States. He went from Slovakia to Kentucky and then here to the Sheriff's Office of Florida. I got him when he was about 3.5 years old. And I mean, he's a phenomenal dog. He has a little stubby tail. He had an accident with his other handler where his tail got crushed.
Oh.
So he's got a little nub tail.
Oh.
So I'll call him Nubby. But he is a phenomenal dog. I mean, massive, 90, 95 pound German Shepherd. Phenomenal tracking dog. I mean,
And he lives with you now.
he does.
Yeah.
I retired him. He started having some medical issues about 6.5 years old. Just because we usually work him about 5 years. So he met his contract requirements because they are basically property of the sheriff's office. So they purchase them, they have them work for an expected period of time, unless medical or injury, and then they can retire him out. And then the handler can elect to, I want to retire him. I'll sign an agreement with the sheriff's office. I'll take him in as my private, responsible for his vet bills, and he is a police dog. So if someone gets hurt by him, it's my responsibility now. So of course I was going to take him when they said, "Hey, he's retiring.
Right.
We're going to get you another dog. Do you want him?" I'm like, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. I'll
He's
get
your
rid of
buddy
Axel.
now.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Now you've got a beautiful family.
Mhm.
How does Axel relate to your daughters, your young girls, and Cassia?
Axel was great with the previous handler. Had kids, had a boy. When I first got Axel, there's no doubt in my mind that he was good with the kids. We had Elizabeth, had Axel in December 2019. Elizabeth born in February 20.
Okay.
So we got pictures of her, the newborn, laying on Axel, or he is a gentle giant. He 100% know the difference between work and at home. He likes to sleep. Elizabeth, when she started crawling, she can crawl onto him, grab on his fur. He never once showed a ounce of aggression towards them at all.
Right.
Now street work, he was a completely different beast. I mean, I could cut him loose. The only thing he needed me for was to write the paperwork for him. He could do everything on his own. He didn't need me at all.
Yeah.
We had a lot of success with Axel, and I always thought, like, man, we're such a good team because of Axel and what the other handler built. and we competed in the USPCA, which is the United States Police Canine Association.
Cool. Yeah.
It's a certifying body, and it's a bit of a competition too. It's like, I don't show my dogs better than you.
Yeah.
They have regionals and they have national competitions. We scored high enough here in the region. I think the first year I had them, we got the top dog for top dual purpose dog, which is narcotics detection, and then patrol work, which is apprehension, obedience, evidence location. They have like this big square of tall grass. They throw like a ID card out there, a set of car keys out there, and the dogs have to have, it's a 30 by 30 square, and they have to go find it, and it's a timeline. They have to go grab it. He was a retrieval dog, so you go find it, grab it, hold it in his mouth, and bring it back to me and sit and keep it in his mouth until I told him to release it. He scored, I think he did like 13 seconds.
Wow.
So we qualified for nationals, went to nationals, and
Humans would need more time than that.
Oh yeah, it's extremely difficult.
Wow.
And he
That's so cool.
scored high enough for nationals. To nationals, we did really well on nationals. We competed on a 4-man team. We got top 4-man team. It was me and 3 other handlers and their dogs, and we got the top team
At nationals.
At nationals.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
I mean, they grade from the quality of the bite work, how hard the dog bites in, or how, where he's out on the sleeve, to when you call him back to a finish, when they come back sit by you, they judge every little aspect of it. And then you got 5 judges that are all staring really hard watching that dog when you're focusing on what you're trying to do. But Axel was a phenomenal dog. So he retired in, I always get these timelines mixed up.
Oh yeah, that's no big deal. What's your current partner now? Your current canine? What's his name?
Canine Ray.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Tell us about Ray.
Ray is a Belgian Malinois German Shepherd mix, what they call Malexes. He's a bit of both. He's got the loyalty and drive of a German Shepherd, but he's got the spastic, crazy mind of Belgian Malinois. Belgium, or Malinois, as it's easier to say, they're very high drive dogs. They have a lot of energy. A lot of countries use Malinois just because they're bred for working. You see like Dutch Shepherds, German Shepherds, or these Malinois. Malinois are they're super agile. They're a little bit smaller, but they are just high tempo 24/7.
Okay. Yeah.
Like at the house, Ray will like just keep walking around the couch, and the living room just keeps walking and walking. Like, Ray, just go lay down. And they're really affectionate. Shepherds are loyal, but my Malinois, I can't go anywhere without him. He wants to like lay on me, crawl in the chair I'm sitting on. He's like, just love me, I'm sorry. And tucks his ears back. He acts like he's so mistreated, but that's just a Malinois. They're just super
The 2
clean.
dogs get along okay?
They do, unless it's food. I have to separate them in complete separate rooms, shut doors, because they get very possessive over food.
It sounds like guys at an independent
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's the fresh steak there, it's gonna be a fist fight over it. They've tied up. They've gotten into a little bit of quarrels every now and then, but I keep them separate for food. Axel likes the attention, but he's older now. He's not going on 10. So he's just kind of like, let me be. I'm an old man.
Yeah.
He still wants attention, but he wants to go lay down and do his own thing. It gets too hot outside. He's like, I don't want to go outside.
So even when the 2 of them have conflict, they recognize you as the alpha.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's awesome.
That's really important.
That's very important in the canine school, is when you build that team, because basically you're getting a dog who, because they pick dogs. So when they breed them in Europe, Europe's like, hey, we're going to take these group of dogs. We're going to keep them here, because over them, it's like the NFL for breeding dogs. As important as sports is here, that is for sport dogs over there. I mean, they're selling dogs for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 dogs for a dog. These are like top of the line dogs. Then we get, they're like, hey, we're going to sell these for police and working dogs. Military and police will take this group of dogs, and then the ones that don't make it, unfortunately, they get rid of. So these dogs that we get that's their mindset. Like, I'm in charge. I'm the best of the group. So you during school, the first part, you got to build that relationship. Like, hey, we're a team, but I'm in charge, and you're going to listen to what I say.
Sure. Yeah.
So they get that, and Ray is. At first, I thought, like, he ain't gonna make it. He's just. I'm like, I can like, Ray, stop it, and he's like, oh, sorry. And he sit down and do his own thing. Axel, like, he's like, I don't want to listen to you today. So Ray is super gentle.
Okay.
I never had any issues with him aggression at all.
Have you done competitions with Ray?
We've done the narcotics. We did a little bit different program. We do certifying through the state of Florida for the patrol side, and then we do narcotics through the USPCA as well. And he's certified well in those. I can't remember the last time. 'Cause, I mean, everybody looks for the show dog on the patrol side. Like, look, my dog he's got the best bite work, agility, search driving. Everyone's like, oh, he's certified narcotics. Yeah, it's a top. Like, you want to be, hey, I won the narcotics search, but the bragging really comes in on, the patrol side. He's done very, very well in narcotics. He always has. He's had some significant cases, working the streets. Ray has one of the incidents we had. He's was used to do a narcotic sniff of some just of a case. I don't want to really get into his details, but it was a 20 pound seizure of methamphetamine, just one of the cases. So he's had a pretty significant amount of seizures. I think
He's doing his job.
yes,
Yeah,
he's
that's awesome.
very good. I think in like 1 year he sees like over 40 pounds of methamphetamine just from narcotics checks.
That's in Escambia County.
That's just in
Wow.
Pensacola.
Wow. That's
It
incredible.
sees a large. It don't seem like a large amount, but fentanyl is so prevalent nowadays that he probably sees like 200-300 grams of fentanyl in his career. But
That's a lot of fentanyl,
that
right?
is a very large amount of fentanyl.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, that much would take care of all Pensacola.
Sure.
Just the amount of overdoses that we see daily here. But yeah, Ray's a phenomenal dog. He's had some great finds. People find hiding in the weirdest places. We've had people hiding down floor vents underneath the houses and washers, dryers, attics, you name it. I mean, he's very, very good at what he does.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of him. Kind of the team that we've built with him. I was like, taking an already trained dog from another handler, like, oh yeah, we're good. We got it. He's smart. I'm learning from him. Now I have a brand new dog that can't even go outside to go to the bathroom on his own. I have to train him from square one. I was like, this is a true test to see how good of a handler you can be and how well you can make a dog. And Ray has been a phenomenal dog.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
He's almost 4. Is he 4? Yeah, he's almost 3.5, going on 4. And he's been excellent this whole time.
That's great.
No regrets on him. He's done really, really well.
Now, you mentioned earlier NAS Pensacola, and I want to ask you about that. And I actually looked, in preparation for this interview, I looked up on the FBI website, and they explained that situation was officially an act of terrorism, and they say that it was motivated by a jihadist ideology. And so could you tell us about that experience? It was December 2019.
Correct.
And I think that shooter, if I'm right,
Housam.
okay, yeah, he killed 3 sailors.
That's correct.
And he wounded 8 individuals, and then you were the man that took him out.
So that morning was an off morning anyways. Normally I was up, ready to go this morning, so we had to be at work by 7, and I forgot my cell phone that morning. So it put me 5 minutes behind getting to the precinct, which I normally would. Our precinct at the time was right there at New Orleans Gulf Beach, which is just outside the gate of NAS. So I was 5-10 minutes behind normal. I'd already been inside, drinking coffee, joking with everybody there at muster. But as I was turning the corner to go on Navy is when the call came in. Just perfect timing. God's timing on that, how that worked out.
Yeah, amen.
Any slower, or if I would have been on time that morning or had my cell phone, didn't forget it because my wife was pregnant at the time. So, everything's crazy. So I left my cell phone. Like, I have to have it because she's probably going to make sure she's taken care of. Cell phones are a way of communication for everything. So I was late, and it worked out perfect. I was able to turn around to me and the guys I've been working with. There's a handful of us all went together through the front gate. When we arrived there, it was a bit of chaos. The front gate's like, hey, go to this building. We don't know their building numbers or how they classify buildings. So we kind of, as we're driving on base, it seemed like an eternity to get there. But I think they said overall like 7 minutes response from time of call
that
to
was
be
on the website too. Yeah.
Time of like, hey, the problem's taken care of, to time when you got the call, like 7 minutes. But it seemed like forever trying to get there. As we got closer, we could see some Marines and sailors were running in a way like, hey, we got to be going the right way, because they had people running to try to go there. Just nobody really could give us information. So we pulled up there. When I got there, what I thought was like, hey, someone's shooting into a window when I first pulled up there, because they had the Navy police, the contractors had the intersection blocked off. So it we kind of just naturally broke up into teams, which was weird, because we all arrived together. It was Sergeant Hoyland, Matt Keebler, myself, that kind of ended up in our own team. And then Deputy Bortner, Deputy Tinch, and Glass in one team. And we just picked different entrance to go into, which I'll explain how that was extremely important later on for my group. So we got there, not a whole lot of commotion really to notate, like, okay, this is just odd. We got there and I saw when I first approached him, like, hey, there's a DOD police officer who was shot. You could tell that he was already significantly injured. He was sitting on the front porch. He got himself out. We met one of the Navy security police there. She's like, hey, he's inside. It's an Arabic male in a flight suit, but we're in a flight student hall. So a bunch of pilots are in here and
There's a lot of flight
students.
suits
So
in there, yeah.
there's either all tan uniform or flight suits, and hey, he's got an AR style rifle. I was like, oh, this is a bad match to go up against.
You probably got like a 9mm or a.
Well, we have rifles as well.
Okay, you're
so
carrying a rifle at the moment.
we're matched up.
Okay,
Firepower to firepower. We had some people deploy with shotguns. We have our SIG handgun 9mm. But it's a 2-story building, all glass front. We stepped in the front door. I was like, hey, get him to cover. He's good. And as soon as we made it through the front door, a young sailor you could tell he was obviously deceased from the injuries he had. When they got watched like the video surveillance, it was a blatant murder of him.
Wow.
So we go to the front, we kind of get in there. She leads in there, but you could tell that she was like, okay, he's in here somewhere. And we could hear the gunfire going off in the hallway. It's all like cinder block building, so the sound just echoes everywhere. Tile floor. So I start hoiling Keeler myself into the front door. We didn't know at the time that Tinch and Bortner and Glass entered the side door. And then when the motorcycle, Lopez entered on another side door on his own. He initially engaged with Al-Shamrati at first, coming down the stairs. It's when they actually had a true confirmation. The other 3, Bortner, Tinch, and Glass, were working down the hallway towards the front door. We were coming through. We had another, you could tell the ensign that was killed. He was in the front desk right there. You could tell he was injured. They had some people kind of taking cover underneath the desk. And there's like shell casings, just loud noises going everywhere. The other team that came to the side door, they actually interacted, had a little bit of gunfire. And one of those guys got shot in the wrist. Deputy Glass got shot in the wrist. There's a bit of confusion if it was from, Al-Shamrati or it was an incidental from one of the Navy police officers. They weren't sure. So he ended up getting drugged into a bathroom with one of the DOD police officers. So he's kind of out of the fight right away. He got hit right in the wrist. But he was on the foyer where we were coming through. And I said the timing was perfect how it worked out, as he was on that foyer watching the front door where we were coming up, where my team was coming up through. When they had their gunfight right there, he retreated down the hallway. So basically, them beating us by 2-3 seconds there saved our team from walking into a blind ambush.
Wow.
He was on the balcony.
He was probably waiting for y'all.
That's a theory we've kind of guessed over time. Is like, hey, he's probably waiting. He knows we're coming to the front door. There's cars flooding in. There's people coming to the front door. There was other military personnel running in there just without. One picked up a fire extinguisher and was ready to go do some work with a fire extinguisher. What he was trying to, save his.
So when he heard that other crew come through the side door, then he moved.
No, he was waiting on that foyer. They had a gunfight between the foyer and the the first floor, and he was on the second floor balcony. Wow. He retreated down the hallway. Well, then that motorcycle officer came in that side door and encountered him direct one-on-one.
Gotcha.
In that stairwell. Shots were fired between them two. The motorcycle officer had a malfunction with his firearm. So he ended up having to retreat to the room, but they believe he hit Al-Shamrati in the arm, throwing his gun hand off. So he came down the stairs, and then after they got Deputy Glass in the room, be secure, Deputy Tinch Bortner counted him face to face in the hallway. That's when Deputy Tinch was shot in the knee and went down. Bortner
with a rifle, he took
and Al-Shamrati ended up having just a handgun. It was a miscommunication. Someone said he had an AR, but he had so many extra magazines. His bags were full of magazines. He was just ready to go. He planned it out. They did their whole investigation later, but they had Tinch got hurt or got shot. He had to get pulled into a classroom, and there's other people who were in there were shot. One was significantly injured under a desk. Deputy Bortner, and it's an old military building, so solid doors. He tries to break a door open to get Tinch to basically save Tinch, and he ended up breaking his ribs trying to break down a door.
Wow.
But he was able to get into an unlocked room, and that's when Al-Shamrati came down the hallway, and that's when my team entered that main open foyer. So Al-Shamrati immediately started firing down on where we were at. We had 2 rifles and a handgun, and it was just a quick volley of fire on our end, just way overpowered him. And I don't know how many times he was shot. That's stuff they're never going to release, but it was effective engagement at that point. He went down. You could tell he's obviously was gonna. It was in the process of dying, basically. There's no.
Do you believe it was your bullet that neutralized him?
I can't say indefinitely.
There's a lot of exchange of fire.
Yeah, there was.
So it was 4-on-1.
It was 3-on-1, 2 rifles and a handgun with just and lots of rounds being thrown down at him that way.
Yeah.
So,
And at that point, he'd already killed several people.
yeah, he already killed 3 people at that point, injured the 8 others.
Wow.
We were his final interaction between Sergeant Hoyle and myself and Keebler. We fired enough rounds that he wasn't going to make it out of that, and there was no other reasonable conclusion to that one. Like, it's going to end in either he's dying or he's not giving up. He's already made up his mind. So it's just going to be a violent encounter one way or the other. So I want to say Sergeant Hoyland took the first shot because you could see a hit the guy, and he kind of flinched and kind of doubled over, and then it was like split seconds there. And then Keebler and myself started firing a bunch of rounds down at him as well, and it was over at that point. He dropped to the ground. We worked our way down the hallway to clear. That's when I was told, like, hey, Glass is shot. Went and go check on him because prior with my EMT had a little med kit with me. I wanted to go check on him. Going down the hallway, we went and confirmed that, yeah, Al Sharondi, he's done for. And like, hey, Tinch was I love Tinch to death. One of good friends of mine, they're like, hey, Tinch is shot. So that kind of
Wow.
like a sucker punch to the gut. So I go in there, and he could tell he's had obvious injury to his knee, and he's sitting in a chair. He's like, I can walk. I'm like, Tinch, no, you're not walking. And I had a elastic bandage that's, you can also kind of, twofold as a tourniquet if you really put a lot of pressure in it. He's like, don't you cut circulation off my leg. I'm like, Tinch, I'm not. I'm just trying to keep it clean, nothing get in there. You can see the clear, obvious wound in his knee.
And with some of your previous experiences to law enforcement, that stuff comes in handy.
Yeah,
Right.
So that's like going through my mind, like, no,
You know what you're doing,
I want to
man.
make sure that Tinch is okay. So, and he tried to stand up, and I tell him this to his dad, I'm like, you look like a baby deer, because he had the complete loss of sensation in his leg. So the baby deer leg, I'm like, no. So arguing with him, you could tell that, obviously a lot of adrenaline, whatever. I'm like, Tinch, you're going to sit here and we're going to carry you out. So me and a couple other guys just kind of scooped him up, carried him out the door. And at that point, there's so many more officers showing up that were kind of helped taking over. They're securing the scene, because once that happened, we got removed from the building. Like, hey, y'all stay here. We're going to take you back to the office, get you new firearms. They seize all our firearms because the FBI takes them, does their analysis, and they gather all the evidence. We got Tinch to the hospital and went to the office, went back, and my lieutenant, he's since retired, Lieutenant Bailey, goes to Chick-fil-A. He's like, hey, my guys were just involved in this. Can I get them some breakfast? So they gave him a bunch of Chick-fil-A sandwiches, and he brought.
That's Christian chicken.
Yeah, we had the
Great
Lord's
way to end.
We had
Feeling
Lord's
ball.
chicken. Yeah, so we were starving, because normally on day shift you start, you're like, all right, time to go get my first cup of coffee for the morning.
Right.
So he brought us all Chick-fil-A meals, and we ate there, and they're like, hey, y'all are good. We'll be in contact. Reach out to us as you need us. And got us new firearms. I went and saw Tinch at the hospital. He's on pain medicines, and laid in the hospital, like, hey, yeah, we're gonna do surgery on his knee. That's when I started breaking down. It's like, man, it's heartbreaking to see your one of your good friends and coworkers just shot.
Is that when it finally hit you when you're at the hospital with him?
Yeah, actually, I was
everything
sitting.
had just gone down.
I was sitting outside. For another incident I learned from, but on that particular, I sat in the back of my Tahoe, and it kind of, it like all kind of sunk, and I called Cass. I was like, hey, look, when you see the news, I'm okay. It's a crazy morning, because she was still asleep. It was early morning, 7:30 in the morning, something like that. I was like, hey, you're gonna see the news, but I'm good. This is wild. It's never happened before. Like,
That's
this,
a good husband.
You're
Call,
good. Yeah. Well,
mind.
prior to when I got hurt significantly in 2018, one of the firefighters that I knew that was riding the ambulance when they called her, and it's like, hey, look, I'm with Matt. He's okay. I got him in the ambulance, and so.
Yeah.
That's a huge. So I learned from that experience. I'm like, hey, I'm going to let her know first what's going on. I'm good. I went and saw Tinch, and made sure he was okay, and then went home, and then we had our follow-up interviews with the FBI afterwards, and they kind of explained a little bit further to us what the actions, and then several years later, as a result of that, we got the Congressional Badge of Bravery through the state. State representatives applied for
That's
it,
so
and,
cool. Good.
and sent back to the DOJ, and the office had their own awards as well. With the
I think
FBI.
you made me think of Romans 13 when you just said that. Like, the idea of law enforcement is to punish evildoers, but then also to reward those that do good. And you were doing well. You deserve, a recognition in that way. I think that's terrific. Could you tell us about how your Christian faith influences your profession in law enforcement?
Not to be so judgmental of people. You see some officers, or just public in general, the hatred towards one another, the quick judgment, the compassion for other people. You see some people in some terrible situations. Is like, I feel terrible for you. Like, I get what you're doing. It's not right, but at the end of the day, like, there's a consequence for it. I had one individual I arrested when I first started out, and then I ran into him after he got out of prison. He's like, the best thing that ever happened to me was you arrested me that day.
Wow.
He's like, I was hooked on fentanyl, meth. When I arrested him at the time, he had every drug you know to man. He had a gun. He was a convicted felon. He did 3.5 years of prison and got out. And when I pulled him over, just your routine traffic stop. He's like, I never stopped for the police. He's like, I never did. He's like, I always ran from the police. He always had to chase me. He's like, but when you put me in prison and I got back out, he's like, I've been drug free. He's like, obviously I stopped. And now he's like, he's getting his family back together. So I think the Christian values are this the compassion for people. You know, don't be so harsh. As a rookie cop, you're like, I'm in charge. You know, you want to go out there, but as you get older and you look at the bigger picture of stuff, it's like, look, it's just as much as the punishment or capture those wrongdoer, you gotta have some sense of sympathy. And over the time, the job can make you hardened towards people, towards reality, towards feeling towards anybody. It'll take a toll on you mentally, and you're just kind of like, you know, whatever. I'm just here to do the job and leave, and you don't listen to people when they're actually saying, you know, and you know, your safety and protection. You know that, you know, like the NAS thing. I mean, the Lord's taught me how all that worked out.
A couple times you said that where like it just so happened that this thing happened at this time.
Yeah, it's like it's a perfect domino effect. Like, hey, I'm going to use you to go take care of this problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's basically he's there to proclaim his Muslim faith and do a jihad against innocent or not, like military members, defenseless. But you know, if I had my cell phone on time in the morning, I'd have been probably in that front door with him. You know, he's in that foyer, or if the other team didn't get there a few seconds before. So
God orchestrated all that.
Very much so. I mean, he's not going to, you know, people are like, well, why, if you know God's real, you know, why would he allow this to happen? He's not going to stop every bad thing from happening. That's not reality.
Right.
But he puts people in place that can mitigate those problems that happen. So looking back on that and the protection for, you know, Tinch, I mean, he got shot in the knee. Thankfully, it was just the knee. He had to have a couple surgeries, but he's back to work.
Right. That's awesome.
You know,
tell us when you got saved. Would you share your specific testimony
So
with us?
were you already saved when you like went into the military for the first time?
Yes. It was, so growing up, I mean, Christopher knows a lot too. Grew up in Springfield, Illinois.
Shout out to Chris for doing all the IT stuff for us. We appreciate
our
that.
computer guy. He was always the computer guy. Growing up, we'd always go to his house. He always had the latest, greatest gaming systems. We'd stay up late playing, you know, odd video games, and you know,
put a little bookmark in there. If we have extra time at the end, we'll just tell some Chris stories.
Oh, there's a lot of good ones. Like the time he got stitches in his knee. When we lived in Iowa for a bit, or how I had to go get a tooth removed because of Christopher. Those were fun times. The stories that will never die out. So grew up in Springfield, Illinois, and my both parents always present. Went to a little small Christian school, you know, kindergarten, first grade. But it was vacation Bible school. I was always super competitive on just in sports in general. But when you memorize verses and said verses, you got ribbons to attach to your name badge. So my goal was always look like those foreign generals with, you know, ribbons down to my ankle. So I was always just memorizing verses, but never really committing them to anything. Just, hey, I'm doing them to get an award. But they always had stories. I wish I could really. I just remember that they always had stories that always lasted all week long, but always had a biblical principle behind it. Always it was usually the salvation message is kind of hidden in a story kids can understand.
Sure.
So it was over those extended period of time, going to a couple vacation Bible schools, that I was like, you know what, I'm not saved. So it was well before fifth grade, because I know a story about fifth grade, which I'll get to. But it was early on. My dad led me to the Lord in our apartment in Springfield, Illinois. Fast forward a little bit longer. Then I was getting ready to go into the fifth grade. We moved. My dad's job kind of moves around a little bit. We went to Missouri, to a real small town, Doe Run, Missouri.
Okay.
They had Doe Run. They had Knob Lick. And they named the town Knob Lick because deers would lick the knob.
Okay.
So Knob Lick, Doe Run. We lived in Farmington, and to get into the Christian school is basically tell your testimony. Like, how do you know you're saved?
Sure.
I was like, well, Jesus died for us. Like, okay, well, what else? And that's the only thing I can answer. I'm like, well, that's why I'm saved. I'm like, you're missing something else. And I was like, okay, well, there's nothing else to it. Not only knowing the fact that, you know, he died for our sins and the way to heaven, but the accepting of the gift of that part. so I was getting ready to go to 5th grade, where basically the reassurance of salvation, my mom was present. I think my dad was at work, and went through the, Romans Road, and like, this is why, faith-based, this is why you're saved. And then I ended up baptized at our local Vernon Baptist Church.
Okay. Okay.
I know he's been there at a super small church as well, but it was at a young age, fifth grade,
Okay,
right along 5th grade, and then the Vacation Bible School was a couple years before that one. But I remember very distinctly the 5th grade, trying to get into a Christian school and trying to explain why I'm saved, not really knowing why. Just
Sure. Yeah.
this is why. Like,
It's good
Yeah.
Christian schools ask those kind of questions because
Mhm.
it provokes you to thought and
Mhm.
you get some deeper roots in
yeah,
your faith.
and there
Yeah.
was no.
It's good.
It was just, I know it, but there's no acceptance. Like, I can't say like, hey, I did it because I accepted or believe. I mean, there's, it was just, hey, yeah, I'm saved. This is why. So it was the fifth grade entrance test
Okay.
to get
No,
into
were
school.
you ready? So you got saved when you were in 5th grade. Were you ready for the military? Like, like as a man, like spiritually, like were you ready for that when you first got into it?
And
Or like when do you think all that growing happened? Like 17 years old, like were you,
After-
as a Christian and a man, were you ready for that?
No, not at all. Well, I guess a little bit of honesty time. At 17, I graduated PCA, so I knew the biblical truths, what I'm supposed to be doing. But at 17, I kind of embraced the military lifestyle. If that makes sense. Like,
Oh, sure.
I'm I graduated, I made it through. I'm a tough guy type mentality. Stopped going to church. Stopped being involved in pretty much everything.
Would
And
you say those are some of your wayward days? Would you
yo,
describe it
absolutely,
that way?
100%.
Okay.
It's just, it wasn't like you compare like, hey, like what true definition is, and we're coming from a Christian background. Like, yeah, those are definitely wayward days, but I'm not doing like everything. Like, I'm not as bad as everybody else. I'm not
Sure,
doing
sure.
all of this, but definitely going out, the partying, separating, all that kind of stuff is like, yeah, those were, quite wayward. And then I got married, and, go to church on and off. Cass grew up in a very, very strong Christian background family.
Great.
Like, I had to ask her dad for, hey, can I take Cass on a date? This is what I want to do. We had to have like a plan laid out. So, I mean, very, very, very strong. I mean, I did too. Nothing my parents did wrong by any means. But you get out there and have a little bit of freedom as an 18, 19-year-old kid.
Right.
You just think like a dumb 19-year-old kid.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's what I did. And then going to school, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep, going on my wayward side. And it was in the last, probably couple of years, 3 years. I mean, we went to church on and off. We tried all Baptist. We were at campus for a little bit. But, it's kind of, I'm an adult. I'm going to do my own thing,
Right.
make your own choices and make your own bed and live in it. And then Cass's dad's like, hey, I want to talk to you or something. We were working on a project. He's like, hey, I noticed that y'all kind of stopped going to church. That's important, especially with kids, on the way and growing up.
Mhm.
It's something you need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
So kind of got back and forth in the church, and I knew I needed to get it together. And there's some issues coming back from post military and some of the stuff in the
Sure.
office is like the mindset's not right. Some stuff I'd struggle with just like I said, it kind of makes you hard. You kind of like
Yeah.
kind of be by yourself. To be quite honest, when I got home from deployment, I got a rescue dog. He was my buddy. I hadn't put him down a couple years ago, unfortunately, but you lose a sense of importance when you get home. So I was like, man, life's kind of pointless, kind of not giving up on a point where you're like, I want to hurt myself, but you kind of lose purpose, and probably that's from my decisions I made on my own,
Sure.
going my own ways. Like, you kind of lose sense of reality. Like, life's pointless. What am I doing? Avoid, really.
Right. Yeah.
And then once he challenged, hey, you need to get back into church. You need to, get back on track.
That was like a checkpoint you needed.
It was, and
Yeah.
it was exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And then probably a year or two after we had that conversation, when I started coming to NorthStone.
Great.
So actually Christopher invited us, and once we found out he got involved in the church, I was like, okay, yeah, we'll give it. We'll definitely try it.
Yeah. Cool.
Which we're happy we did.
Yeah. Now, some of the strictness that your father-in-law had, now you're raising daugers.
Yes.
I mean, are you gonna, as your daughters get older,
Yeah.
get to that stage, you gotta have that same
Yeah,
strictness?
100%. As frustrated as a teenager boy, with everything goes on now, it's like, man, this is difficult. Like, I want to go out and do my own thing. But but no, those are good values. Like, I'm terrified to death now. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-month-old. I was like,
Right, now you're on this side.
yeah, now I'm on his side. I'm like, I'm 100% back in his strictness,
Right.
to protect my girls at all costs, so,
Hey, tell us about 2018. So we talked 2019 about NAS, but it wasn't in 2018 when a guy who had a bunch of warrants tried to run you over with his car.
Yes, so
Well, he did hit you with his car.
Yeah, that was a wild day. I was a rookie cop. I think I had 2 years on the job. I got a call about a guy. It's actually his own grandmother called him in. It ended up being a juvenile, is what it was.
Okay.
Had a bunch of warrants. I want to say like sale of narcotics, fleeing from the police. You name it, he had it. He won a little street gang associates, that kind of stuff. We knew some of his associates that he ran with. We arrested before with guns. So grandma calls and, hey, he's sitting in a car in our front yard. Come arrest him, please. We don't want him to keep doing what he's doing. So we kind of made a quick plan about that. And like, hey, it's a one-way in, one-way out street. We know the street. It's always problems. We always have shooting. Until this day, we still have shootings and murders coming off that road. So a bad part of town, we know that there's a high likelihood that's going to be a violent altercation or interaction, but there's going to be a flee of some kind, or someone's going to there's going to be some level of resistance offered. So we go down there. I think I was like the second car in, I want to say. I parked kind of up on the shoulder grass when we got in front of the house. As soon as I get out of my car, the car starts to take off. The grandma described the car, where he's at. I didn't know who was driving it, but I knew he was in the car. So I get out of the car, and the car goes south on the road, turn around, does a U-turn, and starts coming right towards me.
Oh.
So I'm like, hey, yelling for him to stop. I'm trying to backpedal away, but you can't outrun a car.
Right.
So he guns it. I mean, their whole defense, like, no, he wasn't trying to, but he turned right up where I was at. I was on the grass curb, like, sidewalk, a little piece of grass, and the little short curb. That's where I'm standing at.
Okay.
And I got kind of out in front of the road a little bit, and I'm trying to backpedal away, but it's way too late at that point. So at the point of impact, I kind of jump, almost something like out of a Matrix movie. Jump, fire. I had my handgun out, and I ended up firing a couple rounds, and ended up striking the driver like in the shoulder, upper arm.
Because he's using that vehicle as a weapon.
Sure, yeah, 100%.
You have every right to use your weapon.
Yeah, to try to stop.
Right, exactly,
like the movies,
yeah.
you can't shoot an engine block, car shuts off, and they pull off the side of the road.
Yeah,
that just doesn't work.
Totally different.
Not with a handgun, that doesn't work. So impact, I fire up, hit the driver, and then there's another deputy that's off to my left, standing behind me. He turns the car, and he's running straight at him. Luckily, there's another guy still in his car, another deputy behind us, like a third guy who's still in his car, and just flies up and like T-bones that car into the house, pins it against the house.
Okay. It neutralizes the threat.
Basically at that point. It saves the other deputy standing off to my left.
Right.
At that point, I still have adrenaline. I walk up onto the grass, and that's the point I collapse from the impact. It basically hit hip down to the left leg. And so they ended up getting an ambulance there. As the crew that I used to work with, the fire department when I left, my last crew I was assigned to is the crew that came out there to help me.
Okay.
So the ambulance gets out there. I get put in the back of the ambulance, cut my clothes all up, and I'm like, this is a fun experience. Here I am laying on a stretcher all strapped in with a neck brace on, looking silly. And
that's your rookie year.
Yeah.
That's a rough year.
I was like 2.5 years on the job, maybe.
Okay.
At most, yeah.
So it's early on, yeah.
Yeah, I was still real young.
Okay.
So, 25, 26 years old. Wow. I'm like, I'm ready to go. I'm going to save the world, put everybody in jail. So, that was kind of eye-opener. I go through the whole court legal battle. He wanted to apologize that night at the hospital. He's like, hey, if I say I'm sorry, we drop some of these charges down, because they hit him with like aggravated battery on Leo, sure, which is a pretty significant charge, plus all the warrants, plus the resisting, everything else. So that whole battle had to get settled in court, and then he got out, went to prison, got out, and then violated again. He's now back in prison over that whole deal. Unfortunately, because he's a young kid. He was 16 at the time. Which you think of that like, hey, you don't ever want to have a violent encounter with a kid. I mean, he's a kid and making bad choices, but you don't know who the driver is. I mean, you can't.
Right.
And those kind of encounters you can't take into fact like, oh, he's just a kid, or I don't know, because you don't really know who it is until you actually get them in custody and get their demographics. But when it's you or them type of mentality, you hate to say it that way, but you have to. And when I did the interview with the state, because you have to do a state interview, they do the investigation. It's like, if you didn't jump, I kind of like jumped and rolled at the same when it hit, went up and over the hood. If you would have kept your feet planted, it would have ran right over top of you. It would have killed you instantly, because it's a short ground, short little forward. He said it would have just mowed you into the ground. He said there's no question in my mind. He said we watched the videos. He said the last, like, God's protection there. He said,
Yep.
because nothing in your mind will prepare you like, hey, I need to jump, try to spin over a car.
Right.
But I just like kind of lifted up my feet a little bit, and that's when it hit and flipped me over the car instead of under the car.
It's kind of instincts.
So
Yeah.
came back. So
There's this theme of God's providence and all these
That's-
different stories you're telling.
Yeah. That's
that's what
absolutely
our Nana and my mom, like your guardian angel's working overtime. He's got full body armor on, elbow pads, knee pads, just constantly trying to keep you from hurting yourself. Because when I worked fire department, I got hurt all the time too. Like I have stitched across my head. I had my ring caught in the side of the fire truck, like degloved my finger. So they always joke like your guardian angel's putting in double time because he's not getting a break at all.
Oh yeah, I believe in guardian angels for sure.
I got a couple of them. We got like a whole team.
That's awesome. Yeah. We got some silly questions for you now, Officer Housam. So, what's your favorite food? The stereotype is that police officers love donuts. Talk to us about that stereotype, and maybe do you love donuts?
I do. I did like donuts before becoming a cop.
I guess who doesn't love donuts?
I know.
Right?
And I kind of did some research. Kind of like to look into weird facts. The donuts were so popular with law enforcement midnight because that's the only places that really open. They can have them, but they are good. I do enjoy a good donut. But like favorite food if I had time is I really like Arabic food. Be honest.
What is it?
The Arabic.
Oh,
Is there a place in Pensacola?
Taste of Jerusalem is really
Right,
good.
you and I talked about going
Yeah,
there.
we need to go there.
Yeah, I'd like that.
I tried the Turkish tea or the Egyptian tea over there. It's the hot tea.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that one.
Hey, you took me to like a Oriental place.
Yeah, the faux real
that was
noodle.
fun.
That's
cool.
good.
Really good.
There's another place too. In and Out off of right in the same area off of Davis and Olive. In and Out Kitchen. I want to say he's not Jordanian or Lebanese, something like right around the same area as well.
Yeah.
But he does a lot of same food there. So like I was there yesterday for lunch.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, so I enjoy if it's not donuts, I'll go get Arabic descent food.
Nice.
That's cool.
So it's really good.
So here's another one. What is the worst excuse or the craziest excuse that you've given to somebody in like one of these one-on-one interactions? Like, hey man, like what happened? He's like, oh, this happened. Like, what's the craziest thing you've heard?
Oh boy, one of them was kind of gross. This lady.
That's good for a podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll show pictures.
Yeah. I pulled over for speed. Like it was like crazy fast. I was like, hey, what's going on? She's like, I just defecated myself, but she used clean language for podcast friendly language for it. I was like, excuse me. She's like, it's bad, I gotta go. I was like, have a great day, here's your license. I don't care if anything's wrong with you, just slow down please. I'm not messing, I'm not investigating you further. I'm like, just go. I took her word for it. I'm like, I don't care if you're lying to me or not, but that is I've had that excuse before.
Okay. What's the fastest you've ever pulled somebody over for going?
About 110.
Okay. In Pensacola area? Like down
on the interstate?
Yeah. Mine was probably about 90. I had a friend of mine on Laser had one like 110. I was like, why'd you stop? You're already going fast enough. We're not going to catch you. Just see you later. We had like the go-to excuse, like, these aren't my pants. I've heard that several times.
What does that mean?
Can you explain that?
Okay. So, like if you ever watched the Cops TV show, people have something they're not supposed to have, like any narcotics or whatever in their pants pockets.
Okay.
So I had a guy, he had a warrant for basically illegal possession of oxycodone pills. This is his go-to drug of choice. So when we arrested him, he had more just loose oxycodone pills in his pants pocket. He's like, these aren't my pants.
Okay.
I was like, so you're wearing someone else's pants? He said, yes. I'm like, did you wash them first or check them? He's like, nope, just put them on. Or I found them. I'm like, so you found the perfect size pants that fit you, and you just put them on and you walked around. He's like, yep, pretty much.
Sure.
Wow.
So you have been on Cops before. Was this one of the televised episodes where this happened, or was it?
No, it wasn't one of the televised ones. It wasn't my episode. It was another deputy was on Cops. I don't know if they ever aired it or not. I never saw it.
Tell us about being on Cops. That's really cool.
That's a unique experience because you got to do the policing side of it, but then you also kind of like narrate what you're doing to them, which is kind of weird. It's like after you arrest them, be like, okay, man, you go back and talk again, and like you're like looking at the camera, like not looking at the camera, but you're like, hey, you're gonna go to jail again. These are your charges. Like, I already know what I'm going to jail for. So sometimes they're a little irritated because you gotta narrate because the audience wants to know what's going on, and then you have a camera, like a full camera sitting in your passenger seat, like looking at you and looking out forward. You got the boom mic guy in the back, which builds like, because the door's locked, obviously, so he has like this little contraption that goes out the window and hooks onto the door. He like pulls a rope and it pops the back door open for him. So you got a boom mic guy, you got a camera guy, and they're following you around everywhere, and they're in good shape because they're running with you. So like you're in a foot chase, and here comes the camera guy behind you. One of the cops episodes, I got into a fight with an individual.
And that Mask of Fear?
Yes, that was.
I see that, yeah. Because he's all masked up.
Yeah.
In a hot summer day.
Yeah.
And that's why you pulled
that's a red flag.
Yeah, I just want to like check on because it is hot. I mean, in middle August, you don't want to wear a full ski mask. There was literally, and some like, oh, you're just picking on him. I'm like, no. It was literally to check his well-being. And he just gave me his ID. He's like, here's my ID. I was like, okay, well, you're going to give it to me. I'm going to check you. Make sure you're not going to warrant. So lo and behold, he had a warrant.
Yeah.
But no, it was literally just going like, hey, do you want some water? Do you need air conditioner? Because that's not normal behavior. That is just way too hot to be wearing a mask.
Right.
And the cops was like, hey, man, do you need help? Because they kind of their contract liability, they're like, hey, well, if you get to a spot where you think that you're going to lose this fight or it's life or death for you, they'll actually step in and help you. Okay. They have some handcuffs on them. They're covered by their agency or their company's insurance. Like, hey, if something significantly happens and you have to step in and save that officer, then by all means do it. So I was like, no, I got it. I had backup come in and kind of had him. If you saw the episode, I kind of once I got him kind of in the ground and holding on to him, he
clearly swung at you.
Yeah,
he clearly swung.
You could hear it in they're like the audio clip later that before the edit, you could hear it hit because the microphone's attached to your shirt and vest, and you hear the thud hit the plates in the vest.
Yeah. And then you slam him.
Yeah.
And then you say in the radio something like, you do the code, whatever. And then you say in plain English, we're fighting.
Yeah. The dispatcher's trying to figure out what's going on. I'm like, no, we're just tussling. We're laying in the middle. Yeah. I told back, I'm like, I'm just laying in the middle of Cervantes, which is not ideal. You don't want to be laying in the middle of the road.
Right. How long were you guys there? I saw the backup cub, but it's
a short. It was brief. For him to count to 10, which I thought was where he started counting. I was like, all right, man, well, we'll get you cuffed up. And I could have got him cuffed up, but the problem is like, and people see like, oh, why are you just laying on that person for so long? Is if I get up to get my handcuffs off and let go, then that arm's free again, and it's going to turn another fight. If I can just hold you there and wait till the backup unit gets there, two people can safely get you without exaggerating the injury of that. So we have him there. It's contained. He's not going nowhere. Let the other units get their help. Bring him in that way. If I let him up, then it's another fight again. He gets hurt. I get hurt. Just let him in the car nicely and send him on his way.
Yeah.
He's still around in Pensacola. We run into him all the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. He's
friend.
He's got some issues. Like he went to Home Depot a couple months later and tried to hit somebody with a hammer. So they've tried to get him some treatment and stuff like that, but nothing's going to change for him, unfortunately.
Okay. Now, what do you do to stay in shape as a police officer?
I go to the gym before I go to shift every day, and on my off days, usually I shoot for 5 times a week.
Okay.
The older I get, I used to run, but I don't run anymore.
Right.
I'll power walk on a treadmill. You'll come see me like an elevated treadmill walking like
That's your cardio.
Like the Silver Sneaker Club. And then I do that, and then one type of weight group for the day. And it's easy when you're on the road, especially at night. It's like go to the Waffle House, go to the Whataburger, or eat the fast food junk food. I try to stay away from it. Like some days you're working like, man, cheeseburger sounds really good. I'm going to go treat myself. And I'm going to get a cheeseburger. But no, try to really watch what you eat on the road. And then the fitness is important, especially when we implement it in the canine, because like your canine goes down in the woods, you got a 70-pound limp dog, 80, 90-pound dog.
Right.
We want you to carry him, get him, because you have to hop over fences. You have to. So there's a lot of, everyone's like, oh, it's cool to work a dog, but there's a lot that goes into it just because you got to carry your gear and you got to make sure you're taking care of that dog. So, fitness is a big part of it, at least. And you'll see some cops that's kind of irritating. Like they don't take it.
Yeah.
They don't take it
That's why
serious.
I kind of ask. Yeah. Like Officer, of course, you and then Brother Gallion, we interviewed him not that long ago. He takes it real serious too.
Yes.
So, but then sometimes we meet other officers and it's like, I don't know how serious they're taking it.
And it's aggravating. It's like, I mean, if you go down, I have to carry you out of here.
Right. Yeah.
When I got ran over, it was a female deputy that me and her were similar start dates. She actually drug me back to the back of the Tahoe by herself.
Okay.
So I have all my gear on. She's one hand dragging me, holding the gun,
she's strong.
covered. Yeah.
She's staying in shape.
Yeah.
Good.
So like that, and that's important. Like if
Yeah.
I got to get my buddy like Wood Tinch when he got shot, I was like, hey, it's important. That would have been those 300-400-pound cops you kind of see on TV. Like, come on, man. Like I'm not carrying you. I can't. I physically cannot remove you. But when they're in shape, it's like, hey, and plus adrenaline too. I'm sure that has a huge factor in it.
Right.
But I could pick you up. I'm going to take you out of here. I got you. You want to be able to. You don't want to be that guy that lets your team down because hey, I can't protect you or I can't get you out of here, or I'm going to be the dead anchor that holding you here and like y'all leave me. I'll be all right. You don't want to be that guy. And I think that's a motivating factor for me. And I encourage it for like some of the younger deputies I work with. I'm like, hey, stay in your fitness, because it is very easy to get complacent, sit in your car. Eat the donuts, because they are good. People drop off donuts all the time. So I'll be guilty of that too. People dropped, like the other day, someone dropped off Krispy Kremes. I was like, man, I'm hungry. Because it's easy to burn through with weird hours. So they're like, hey, I'm ready to eat like dinner number 5 at midnight. So
Right.
there's a fresh box of Krispy Kreme donuts. I'm like, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to have me some Krispy Kreme. So I need a sugar pick me up. So you grab the donuts and go.
Right.
Just as a citizen, I like when I see cops who are in shape, like I respect them for it.
Right. Me too.
And I think the opposite when I see ones that aren't.
Yeah, I think that's and I think it carries a more professional image.
Sure. Yeah.
When you're like, hey, look, my uniform's clean, I'm present, and I know I take care of myself, because it's like athletes. You want the athletes to be, when you watch them perform, you want to watch them perform at their highest level.
Yeah.
You don't want to call a cop over, or a fireman. The same with fire or EMS. You don't want to call somebody over. It's like, they're struggling to get out of the car.
Right.
So you mentioned time you spend in the gym. How much time do you spend in court? It's not the same thing, but I'm sure it's still like an exercise.
I
you're exercising your public speaking. You're telling us.
Yeah, I joke about having my second home at the courthouse. Being a canine officer, we're doing narcotics checks for all the different. So deputies will complain like, "Oh, I got to go to court today." They get one subpoena, so it's just their case. But I'm attached to every one of their cases they use me for. So this deputy calls me, this deputy. So 5 different deputies call me, and I have to go testify on all their 5 different cases. So I joke I'm down there all the time. I mean, I know a lot of the attorneys, both state and defense attorneys. Would joke with them the other day. I had a Zoom conference call with them. They're all looking at the dog on Zoom and joking and laughing. So a good amount of time is spent in court. Usually depositions. So they usually depose you before going to court, and a lot of times if it on the quality of your work, they're like, hey, we'll just a plea agreement, or we're going to resolve this case. And with the advent of body cams, it kind of helps solidify the evidence better. Even though it shows one perspective, it doesn't get everything, 9 times out of 10.
Are cell phones a good thing in your mind? A lot of times, instead of like people helping an officer, they're recording an officer.
Yeah.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it can go both ways. We have some videos of citizens that are standing by that capture what we're not capturing. Like, as I say, it's a car chase. Person bails out and people are like, oh, there he goes. The person's like, I'm not in that car. It's like, oh, we got a cell phone of you leaving that car, a video of that car. The drawback to those are, like, if it is a bad encounter, like typically you see those videos pop up in officer-involved shootings. It's like, it's a nasty fight on the side of the road. And they've gone through all the different types of tools to affect the rest, and between tasers, batons, OC spray, whatever, and it's just not working. Or it's such a violent encounter that it goes from 0 to 100 where someone's getting shot right away, and they're too busy videoing. Like, hey, if he would have said, hey, and then a lot of times now, I mean, I've had personal ones here where people are like, hey man, just stop fighting, it ain't worth it. Like, the person that we're fighting with, they're yelling like, hey, quit fighting him, just it's over, man. And then sometimes they listen like, hey, that's kind of helpful. Gotcha. And then on the flip side is the video starts way late in the process.
You're
like
right.
what led up to that video, what went from the start of the interaction to how to end in a deadly interaction, what missed that, and that's what goes out forefront first. Then the body cams released like, oh, we missed all that whole first part. How now we see why it ended where it did.
Body cam's helpful.
Yes. I like it because there's always on. Yeah. So you got to be mindful, like, hey, I'm going to put it in the dock when I go into the restroom, or I go to eat, or go to something like that. They back up, they start playing a minute before they record, because they're always on.
Right, you told me that. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's always capturing footage. So as soon as it's activated, that's when the audio kicks on, and it starts basically hard writing the video down. So like if it's on now, like if I had my vest now, it'd be on for a minute playback. So I hit start now, a minute back is captured on video, not necessarily the audio part. So if you're in the bathroom and something crazy happens, and then you run out, because as soon as the car lights turn on or you self-initiate it, it's going to kick on. So it captures a minute, whatever you're doing prior to.
Okay. So
that's something, when we first got them, it was like, you got to be really mindful. Like if you have a privacy thing, you got to be really mindful where you're putting that camera, because it will capture everything a minute prior to. Like you're texting your family, or like, Zoom or FaceTime calls with the kids at the house.
Sure.
You're sitting there talking to them, and then something pops up, and you're like, oh wow, I gotta go.
And the whole time,
it's
engage that last 60 seconds.
So yeah, that's something to be mindful of. But they're very helpful. I mean, like if you need something extra detailed out of your report, you go back and watch, like, hey, I missed this part of that interaction. It helps brother on. But yeah, I mean,
I've got to let you go here pretty soon, but could you tell us your life first? Maybe just 2 more quick questions.
Sure.
Do you have a life first?
Sure. It's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trusting. I told you I get nervous. I'll start forgetting things. I can quote it.
Yeah, I love that passage. Yeah.
My parents actually wrote it in one of my first Bibles. Trust the Lord with all that heart, lean on thy own understanding, and all that ways acknowledge Him. That was one that they wrote down when I was a young kid in the Bible. So I've always had it since probably the Vacation Bible School era.
Yeah. And that's so appropriate in your line of work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, and you've talked a lot about the providence of God and His hand of blessing on you, and
how
you've
He's
trusted
like
Him.
literally directing your paths.
Yeah,
It's really good.
Yes, absolutely.
Final question,
Sure.
and that is like people talk about a bucket list. Do you have anything on your bucket list, what you want to do before you pass away? You got a lot of life left in you.
Yeah.
But
I've hit some of them. Like I've wanted to go skydiving. I went skydiving. Me and Cass went skydiving.
You've already done that.
I have.
Check that off. Okay.
It was 13,500 feet we jumped out at.
The two of you strapped together?
Oh, no, we're strapped to an instructor.
Okay, each a separate instructor.
Yes.
Okay, I got
that was fun. I wanted to do scuba diving. I think it'd be kind of cool to go out to like the Riscony. I used to ride motorcycles, but not so much after some injuries. I'm like, I don't really want to risk anymore. Yeah. I'm kind of scared of them.
I know about that. I know all about that.
Honestly, at this, not too much more. This kind of hit a lot of the things I wanted to do already.
Right. Yeah, you're living a pretty exciting life for sure.
It's been a roller coaster for sure.
Yeah.
But no, I think scuba diving the last. I want to go skydiving again. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I can't talk, Cass. You won't do it again with me though.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find some friends to do. I have a good friend from work, and he's absolutely terrified of going on a 5-foot ladder, so he will not go skydiving with me. He's terrified of heights, so I got to find someone to go with me.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us for today's podcast. We really appreciate it.
Really interesting.
I have a lot of respect for you.
I appreciate it.
For how the Lord's using you. And I do believe that the Lord calls pastors into pastoral work, but I think He also calls law enforcement officers.
Absolutely.
And with the calling comes the enabling. And it's wonderful. We got a couple of little gifts for you here.
Okay.
Couple little things. Got you a Strength for Life hat, little trucker hat. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, I wear hats like daily.
Do you really? Okay, cool. Yeah.
When I'm not here at church or at work, I've always got a hat.
Maybe out working in the yard or something. And as you see it, remember to pray for Strength for Life, the ministry here. And then also got you a copy of Issues of the Heart.
Oh, great.
And just kind of things I've struggled with, and the Lord gave me some biblical answers, and so we've published that book, so I hope that'll be a blessing to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, man. Hey, so we do want to thank all of you that have joined us for today's podcast. We trust that this dialogue, this discussion was full of strength for your life, and if there's a way our church or our ministry can be a help or a blessing to you, feel free to email us. My email is pastor@northstonebaptist.org, and I would love to hear from you. All right? Hey, thanks again for joining us for Strength for Life.